What if someone offered you the chance to step back into the happiest moment of your life? To feel it again, every laugh, every touch, every heartbeat as vividly as the first time? But what if that person wasn't human? Clara adjusted the collar of her apron, glancing at the clock above the counter. It was almost 8 p.m., signaling the end of another long shift at Brew and Bloom. The cafe was quiet now, save for the soft hum of the espresso machine winding down and the faint creak of floorboards beneath her feet. Most nights, she looked forward to closing up, locking the doors, turning off the lights, and heading home to the solitude of her tiny apartment. But tonight felt different. As the last few customers trickled out, Clara noticed the familiar silhouette through the glass door before he even stepped inside. He always came exactly 5 minutes before closing, a man with salt and pepper hair, dressed in a dark coat that seemed too heavy for the mild autumn evening. She didn't know his name, only that he ordered the same thing every night, a plain black coffee, no sugar, no cream. She sighed, forcing a polite smile as the bell above the door jingled softly. "Evening," she said, reaching for the mug she'd already set aside for him. "Your usual." He nodded, but instead of taking his usual seat by the window, he lingered near the counter. His dark eyes met hers, and for the first time, Clara felt a chill run down her spine. Not fear, exactly, but something deeper. Something unplaceable. "You've probably wondered about me," he said suddenly, his voice low and steady, like the whisper of wind through trees. Clara froze, caught off guard. Yeah, I guess." She laughed nervously, trying to brush it off. "You're kind of mysterious." His lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. "I suppose I am. My name is Elias. And I'm not exactly ordinary." Now she was intrigued. Setting the coffee pot down, Clara leaned slightly over the counter. "Not ordinary how?" Elias glanced around the empty cafe, then back at her. "Let's just say I collect moments. Moments of kindness, to be precise." "Moments of kindness," Clara repeated, raising an eyebrow. "Like memories." "Exactly," he said, nodding slowly. "They're rare these days, fragile, fleeting things. But when I find them, I preserve them. It's my purpose." Clara frowned, unsure whether to believe him or think he was pulling some elaborate prank. "Okay, so why are you telling me this?" Elias tilted his head, studying her as though searching for something in her expression. "Because tonight, I want to offer you a gift. A chance to revisit one special memory from your past. Would you like that?" Her breath hitched. Revisit a memory? Was this guy serious? Yet there was something about the way he spoke, calm, deliberate, that made her hesitate. Against her better judgment, she found herself nodding. "One memory," he clarified. "One moment. Choose wisely." Clara hesitated, her mind racing. There were so many memories she wished she could hold onto: the laughter-filled summers of her childhood, the first time she'd held her newborn niece, quiet evenings spent talking with her late grandmother. But one stood out above the rest. "When I was 12, she began softly, "my dad took me to the beach. Just the two of us. We built sandcastles, chased seagulls, and watched the sunset together. That night, we stayed up late looking at the stars. It was perfect." Elias studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Close your eyes." Clara hesitated, her heart pounding. What if this was some weird dream? Or worse, a scam? But curiosity and maybe a sliver of hope won out. She closed her eyes. At first, nothing happened. Then, warmth spread through her chest, followed by the salty tang of ocean air and the distant cry of seagulls. She opened her eyes and gasped. She was standing barefoot on cool sand, the waves lapping gently at her toes. Her father stood beside her, younger and healthier than she remembered him being in recent years. His laugh echoed in her ears as he pointed out constellations in the sky, his voice rich with wonder. She could smell the bonfire they'd built earlier, taste the sticky sweetness of marshmallows roasted over the flames. "Dad," she whispered, her voice trembling. He turned to her, his face lighting up with that familiar grin she hadn't seen in years. "Hey, kiddo. Thought you might need a little reminder of how beautiful life can be." Tears filled her eyes as she soaked in every detail: the sound of his voice, the way his hand felt in hers, the weight of his arm around her shoulders. It was real. So achingly real. They sat together under the vast expanse of stars, talking about everything and nothing. He told her stories about his own childhood, jokes that made her laugh until her sides hurt, and advice that somehow felt both timeless and brand new. For those precious hours, it was as though no time had passed at all. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the scene dissolved. Clara found herself back in the cafe, sitting across from Elias. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but she couldn't stop smiling. "Thank you," she whispered hoarsely. "I needed that." Elias inclined his head, a gentle smile touching his lips. "Kindness often comes when we least expect it. Remember that, Clara." With that, he stood, leaving a single coin on the table beside his empty cup. Before she could say another word, he walked out the door and disappeared into the night. Clara picked up the coin and turned it over in her hand. It shimmered faintly, like moonlight caught in glass. She tucked it into her pocket, feeling lighter than she had in years. That night, as she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her mind replayed every second of the memory. She realized how much she'd been carrying: grief over losing her father, guilt for not spending enough time with him before he passed, and the relentless pressure of adulthood that left little room for joy. But Elias' gift had reminded her of something important: happiness wasn't gone forever, it lived within her, waiting to be rediscovered. Over the next few weeks, Clara began noticing small acts of kindness everywhere: in the way her coworker brought her a cup of tea when she looked tired, in the stranger who held the door open for her, in the letters her grandmother sent filled with love and encouragement. Each act felt like a thread connecting her to the world again, weaving a tapestry of hope and gratitude. Yet, despite the newfound light in her life, Clara couldn't shake the mystery of Elias. Who or what was he? Why had he chosen her? And why did he leave so abruptly? One evening, unable to resist her curiosity any longer, Clara decided to visit the cafe after her shift ended. She waited until the last customer left, flipping the sign to closed and dimming the lights. Then she sat at the table by the window where Elias always sat, clutching the shimmering coin tightly in her palm. Minutes passed, then hours. The street outside grew darker, the city settling into its nightly rhythm. Just as she was about to give up, the bell above the door jingled softly. Elias stepped inside, his presence as calm and enigmatic as ever. He smiled faintly when he saw her. "You waited." "I had questions," Clara admitted, rising from her seat. "Why me? Why now?" Elias sighed, pulling out the chair opposite hers. "Because you needed reminding. You've been carrying burdens too heavy for one person to bear. Kindness has the power to heal, Clara, not just others, but yourself." "But why do you care?" she pressed. "Who are you, really?" For the first time, Elias' expression softened, tinged with sadness. "I'm a collector of moments, yes. But I'm also a traveler between worlds. I exist to preserve what humanity often forgets: the beauty of connection, the strength of compassion. When I see someone struggling, I offer them a glimpse of what they've lost, hoping it will guide them back to themselves." Clara swallowed hard, her throat tight with emotion. "Will I ever see you again?" Elias shook his head. "Unlikely. My work here is done. But remember this, kindness isn't just something you receive, it's something you create. Carry that with you. Before she could respond, he stood and walked toward the door. This time, Clara didn't try to stop him. Instead, she watched as he disappeared into the night, leaving behind only the faint scent of coffee and the lingering warmth of his words. From that night on, Clara carried Elias' lesson with her wherever she went. She started volunteering at a local shelter, sharing meals and stories with people who needed a listening ear. She reconnected with old friends, mended strained relationships, and even began writing letters to her father, pouring out her heart onto paper as if he were still there to read them. Though she never saw Elias again, she knew his gift had changed her life forever. In a world that often felt chaotic and cold, she became a beacon of warmth, a reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness could ripple outward, touching lives in ways she might never fully understand. And sometimes, late at night, she would pull the shimmering coin from her pocket and hold it close, whispering a silent thank you to the mysterious stranger who had shown her the way back to herself.